Man, this video really ballooned in length. I took a break for a brief sec just to get a sip of water, and I'm looking at the video length, and it's like, holy shit. This was a mistake. Obviously, you know, the sequels I'm kind of mixed on nowadays. I'm not even kind of mixed, I just fucking don't like them. But at the time, I did want to give them a chance. And for what it's worth, while I was a little disappointed with the fact that Force Awakens was very derivative, you know, especially after losing so much of the EU, it was decent for what it was. And, you know, not for nothing, I don't think Force Awakens is really that bad. There are, excuse me, there are even things I do enjoy about it on its own merits, but at the time, while I did enjoy it and thought it was a good step forward, especially because, you know, I was still in the prequels suck phase. It's like, you know, anything's better after the prequels. I grew out of that phase eventually, but I was still kind of in it when Force Awakens happened. With Force Awakens, I enjoyed it for what it was. I didn't like how derivative it was, but I thought, you know, alright, you know, it's a soft reboot kind of film. I see what they're doing, you know. Hopefully the next film, Episode 8, will be more original. And, well, I know this might be a bit of a hot take, but I don't think it was. I mean, some people say it was bold and ambitious. I would say maybe it was ambitious, but not very new. But I'll get to that when I get to that. I saw Force Awakens in theaters when it came out. I remember seeing it. I remember seeing it with my friend Zach. And apparently, during the theater-going experience, he kept quoting Jar Jar, and it pissed off so many people in the theater. I had no idea. I mean, I knew he was quoting Jar Jar just because that was a thing we did. He even did it in the Phantom Menace movie commentary, because this was around the time where the Sith Lord Jar Jar memes were happening, which are totally true, by the way. Jar Jar is totally a Sith Lord, all right? That's not even a theory or just a meme, okay? It is canon. And the fact that, honestly, I don't even know why they brought Palpatine back when they had a perfectly good Sith Lord they could have used in Jar Jar. God, what a fucking ripoff. Zach was constantly quoting Jar Jar the entire time. And I didn't know that other people were annoyed by this, but my brother did, because he was with me at the time. We went to see the movie together. It was me, Zach, and my brother, and I think that's it. Either way, Shane and other people in the theater just wanted to strangle Zach because they were so sick of fucking Jar Jar memes and fucking jokes. And, you know, nowadays I know it's like, okay, Zach, like, shut the fuck up. But it's like, you know, he... I didn't notice it because I was so focused on the film, but goddamn, people were mad. Either way, it didn't really bother me much. I was just enjoying the movie, and I enjoyed it. I liked it for what it was. I did wish it was a little less derivative of A New Hope, but I enjoyed it for what it was. I thought it was like, all right, you know, it's a soft reboot. It's a good starting point. Let's see what happens afterwards. And, you know, it took a while. Afterwards, we got Rogue One, which I actually liked better than Force Awakens. I did acknowledge that the cast was not that engaging. It wasn't that interesting, and to be honest, it still isn't. Yeah, I know Andor is interesting now because we have Andor, the TV show, but before Andor, who was Cassian Andor? Let's be honest here. Cassian Andor, he wasn't really much of a character. He was two-dimensional at best. It was the Andor show that made him, you know, more of a character. And that is a problem with Rogue One, is that the main cast isn't very interesting. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the final battle. I enjoyed the Vader hallway scene, and that was enough to make me like... I also enjoyed how much darker it was compared to Force Awakens. It felt like it wanted to take more risks. And yeah, I know, definitely did some nostalgia baity stuff, I know. But I did appreciate that it was, you know, trying to be darker, trying to be grittier. It felt more like a war movie. And it being a direct prequel to A New Hope was Something I didn't love, but it was kind of neat at the time. Nowadays, I think that was a bit of a mistake, but you know, it is what it is. It's not that big of a deal. I really liked the Rebels references, though, because we got to see the ghost ship fighting, and we got to see Chopper. That was really neat. This was before Rebels Season 4 confirmed that Hera and Rex survived the Battle of Endor. So, you know, that was pretty neat. I don't have too much to say about Rogue One. It's been a while since I've seen Rogue One as a whole. I've only seen it a handful of times, but I remember enjoying it more than Force Awakens, although I did admit that the cast of Force Awakens was a little more interesting. Of course, nowadays, sort of back and forth on that nowadays, but, you know, Rogue One was okay. I think it's a pretty decent film. I do think it is held up a bit more thanks to Andor, because Andor did a lot to make Cassian such a better character and to delve into some of the darker aspects of the Star Wars universe that Rogue One did acknowledge, but it also didn't really acknowledge that much of. Like, it delved into it a little bit, but Andor was what really took it and just ran with it and just did an amazing job with it. So yeah, I know it's not the first Star Wars product to be really, really dark. I know the expanded universe has tons of disturbing and dark stories, some of which I haven't even read, so I'm sure I will get to them when I get to them. Andor's not the first of its kind, it's just the first of the TV shows to do it, but Rogue One was sort of a stepping stone, in a way, for Andor. It walked a bit so Andor could run, and in that sense, I do appreciate it nowadays. But Last Jedi was the movie I was really looking forward to because it's Star Wars Episode 7. It's one of the main episodes. I was surprised at how quickly it was coming out, since usually every Star Wars film took about 3 years. That's what it did with the original and the prequels. Granted, yes, I didn't watch them in theaters at the time. I wasn't a Star Wars fan much at the time when they were releasing, but I did note that, but originally, with the sequels, they came out faster. It was just kind of weird, but, you know, whatever. Filmmaking, whatever. It's changed a lot. And Last Jedi came out, and... Oh. Oh. The reaction to this movie. So, I didn't hate Last Jedi at first. My thoughts were very much mixed. I, at the time, liked the stuff with Luke, mainly for Mark Hamill's performance. And I will say this, even though I don't really like what they do with Luke now, Mark Hamill's performance is genuinely one of the best parts of Last Jedi. Even though I'm not a fan with what they do with this character, I think Mark Hamill really sells this poorly executed story with his performance, because it's like really, really good. It is a great performance, and it's a shame that, you know, it was used on a story idea that nowadays I look back on and just dislike it. I don't think the concept of Luke becoming a hermit and a failure is inherently bad, but the way it was executed was not up to snuff. But at the time, I liked it for what it was. I liked that part of the movie. Honestly, though, I didn't really like much else. I thought that the Luke, Rey, and Kylo stuff was interesting, and the rest of the movie was just kind of a boring mess. And, you know, nowadays, I like the movie less and less and less. Last Jedi is one of those movies where I liked it at first to an extent. And then with each passing viewing, I liked it less and less. Like, it was like the first 2 viewings, it was like, alright, you know, this is a little different, but, you know, it's okay. Mark Hamill's really good, at least. And then I watched it again in theaters, like, alright, you know, I'm able to accept it for what it is. I still don't like the parts I don't like, but then, like, it just got worse and worse and worse each time. And I think what really, really made it worse was Episode 9. Which I will get to in a moment, but Last Jedi had a lot of big problems as a movie as a whole, and unfortunately they just became more and more glaring. as time went on. But, I still wanted to give it a chance. I thought, they could still bring it home with Episode 9. I still kind of think Last Jedi could work if it were executed a little bit differently. It could be something better, but I think the way it is now is just kind of a mess, and I'll get into it when I talk about the movie. But at the time, I thought it was okay. And then Solo happened. I did watch it in theaters. It was actually one of the funniest theater viewing experiences for me, period, because my brother was with me, because he was for Force Awakens and Last Jedi and TCW the movie. He was with me for all of those. He hated it. He despised it. It was one of the most annoying movies for him. He absolutely hated the equal rights for robot droid, and he thought the movie was an absolute shit show. I didn't hate the movie that much, but I thought it was mediocre. I was pretty vocal about the fact that I didn't really want a Han Solo movie. I just felt that a Han Solo prequel just wasn't really necessary. And honestly, I still stand by it. I tried watching it again. I didn't really get very far into it. I just felt the movie was just kind of mediocre. It's not awful. I know there's a fan base for Solo that defend it to their last breath, and I don't know. I will have to rewatch it if I want to talk about it at some point, so maybe my thoughts will change, but I don't think they will. It's not the worst of the bunch, but it's very, very mediocre. There are some cool moments, but they're just that. They're moments. And honestly, I'm not really the hugest fan of the actor they got to replace Harrison Ford as a young Han. Like, nothing against the actor himself, but he just didn't feel the same. And I know, it's hard to top Harrison Ford and his portrayal as Han. But, like, it just didn't really feel like Han Solo. And then there was Donald Glover as Lando, and he was a little better. But I still didn't think he was quite fitting. But, And then there's another reason, but I'll get into that later since I don't want to piss people off too much right now. But yeah, Solo didn't really do anything for me. But whatever. Episode 9 is the film I really want. And then the first trailer dropped. And I was mad by this first trailer. This first trailer was basically the straw that broke the camel's back with the sequel trilogy. By this point, the sequel trilogy had a huge hatedom, and I was one of the people who was a little more in the middle, like, give it a chance, it could get better, or yada yada yada. It's like, no, it's fucking terrible. I was one of the people in the middle, just kind of being like, we'll see what happens. This trailer made me fume. So, one of the things with the sequel trilogy that a lot of people didn't really like, and admittedly this was something I didn't like either, was basically the idea that Luke, Han, and Leia, and Chewie, and R2, and 3PO, everything they fought for, everything they sacrificed, basically was for nothing. Because, they built a new republic, but it became just as corrupt and, basically shooed Luke and Leia out of the new republic that they were trying to build. Luke's Jedi Order went to shit. Han and Leia split off after Ben Solo became Kylo Ren. And, everything, then the First Order in Force Awakens just completely destroys the new republic in a matter of seconds, and now the First Order is basically just the Empire again. They have conquered the galaxy again, despite, literally, Last Jedi and Force Awakens, they literally take place right next to each other. There's no time skip. And because of this, with Force Awakens, literally, the First Order destroys the New Republic in its entirety, with only remnants remaining. And then by Last Jedi, they suddenly conquer the entire galaxy. Even I got a little peeved at that, because it's just like, really? We're doing that again? Okay, maybe they'll do something different with it. They didn't. And then when they killed off Snoke, I was like, oh, well, Kylo's in charge. I mean, Kylo's not really much of a threat, considering he was beaten by Rey, or, like, multiple times at this point. But, you know, whatever, you know, it could work, you know, you would have to power up Kylo Ren quite a bit, and I thought a way they could do that was maybe him gaining knowledge of the Sith and becoming a real, true Sith Lord. You know, kind of like how Jacen Solo did. Now, granted, I didn't read the new Jedi Order stuff, but I know about Darth Caedus. I know he was a Sith. You know, they could do that. Sure, he wouldn't be as powerful as Palpatine, but it would be a decent threat for Rey to face. And, you know, Luke is gone, and he said, oh, I will haunt you until the day you die, basically, in Last Jedi. He didn't say it exactly like that, but he said, see you around, kid. And I thought, okay, you know, and initially that is actually where the story was going to go with the original version of Episode 9. Originally, Kylo was supposed to get a Sith holocron that would make him so much more skilled and powerful for even, you know, Rey would have a tough time beating him. And I think that's where they should have gone, honestly. Because, like, with Rey being as powerful as she is, she needs a credible threat that can push her to her limit and make her lose something. And that was a problem with Rey as well. Rey, I felt, was a character that was very mishandled. I'm not going to get into the culture war shit, whether she's a Mary Sue or not. I don't really care. I do think that she is somewhat of an overpowered, not necessarily Mary Sue, but a very confused character. I feel like with Rey, they didn't really know what to do with her, which is synonymous with the sequel trilogy. They didn't really know what they were doing. One minute, she has this super important backstory that's, like, being built up, and then in the next movie, oh, you're from nothing. You are nothing. But not to me. And, you know, at that time, I was like, alright, fine, you know, Rey's just a super powerful Force sensitive. Okay, makes sense. You know, that has happened. You know, granted, I don't think she's a virgin within the Force or anything. She's not Anakin. She's just a very Force-sensitive individual. You know? Okay, fair enough. You know, that's fine. I do think she suffered from a severe lack of training. I feel like what would have made it a little easier of a pill to swallow is, instead of Luke being a hermit, Luke starts to train Rey, which allows Rey to become more powerful than Kylo, which would lead to Kylo then killing Snoke and realizing, wow, I'm not a match for Rey, and so now I have to find a way to gain power and complete my own training to where he can surpass her. I think that would have been better, because one, it would have made it so, you know, Rey would have a challenge and a worthy opponent, but also so, you know, her power made sense, you know? Because her beating Kylo Ren was a very contested moment. I was okay with it when I first watched it, but I look back on it now and I'm just like, how did she beat Kylo Ren? Now, I know some people have stated that, you know, she uses the dark side, but it doesn't really feel like that. It feels like the moment where Rey beats Kylo feels like a triumphant moment. The films keep hinting that Rey has a dark side. And, you know, we kind of see it. She's very angry. She gets frustrated. She is vengeful, like, at Kylo Ren for killing Han, who she was really close to. And all of that makes sense. But they never actually show to the fullest extent how her anger really affects her. Like, her anger never really affected her negatively. And I feel like it's fine if she gains a victory via use of the dark side in Force Awakens. But Last Jedi should have shown Rey being angry and using the dark side and suffering the consequences for it, to where she learns a valuable lesson that her reliance on the dark side and her raw Force power is only going to take her so far. If she lost something valuable, whether it be an arm or a person she cared about or anything, that would be, I think, a better way to go, but they just didn't really do that. It just felt like Rey as a character was lost. Like, in writing. They just didn't really know what to do with her. They wanted to make a female character, because, hey, people wanted a female main character, and it would be easier for girls to get into Star Wars. I mean, whatever. I was okay with the female protagonist, but you have to give her something. You have to give her more than just she's a woman. Daisy Ridley tried really hard with what they could give her, but there's only so much that she can do when the character is just so messily handled. And honestly, I don't even think it's because Rey was meant to be a Mary Sue. It's not because Rey is meant to mean men or be a girl boss. I don't even really think she's a girl boss or anything like that. She's just a character that doesn't really have, she's just a character that doesn't really have a proper, they didn't know what to do with her. She's a badly written character where they just don't really know what to do with her. It's not because she's a Mary Sue. It's not because of any culture war bullshit. I'm not calling the movies woke or anything. Believe me, there are projects that can be considered for the wokes and for the chuds. But I don't think the sequels were had a problem with culture war shit. I think Rey's problem is synonymous with the sequel trilogy. They didn't know what they were doing. And Rey's character was suffering from that. They didn't have any idea what to do with her. And nowhere is this exemplified more than Rise of Skywalker. You will never convince me that Rise of Skywalker was part of the plan, because it wasn't. And honestly, really, this was the beginning of the end, but the tipping point was the first trailer for Rise of Skywalker, where they revealed that Palpatine, who died in Return of the Jedi, had lived. Now sure, he did die. He was a clone, but it was very much still him. I was not happy with this. Now I know that Dark Empire did this as well, the Legends book. I know that was a thing as well. But one, that's a story that is not looked at that fondly, especially compared to the Thrawn trilogy, which came before it. Most people agree that even if the story itself isn't necessarily bad, they should not have brought back Palpatine. It felt cheap. But it was also a side story. They also made it make a little more sense as to how he came back. It still wasn't a great idea, but, at least they tried to make it make sense. There's also the fact that this was before the Star Wars prequels. The expanded universe was in a very different place at the time. And another thing is that Luke Skywalker was the one to finally finish him off. At the very least, it didn't undermine... it kind of undermines Anakin's sacrifice. I will agree on that. It does undermine Anakin's sacrifice. But at least Luke was the one to finally finish him off, But this is different. With Rise of Skywalker, it was already bad enough with Force Awakens undermining the efforts of Han, Luke, and the Rebellion, and Leia, and her restoring the New Republic and everything. All of that was undermined by Force Awakens. But at least Palpatine was defeated, right? Anakin's sacrifice still remains. And that was undone by Rise of Skywalker. You have effectively undermined, and keep in mind, Luke and Han are dead at this point. Leia's not. Leia survived, despite Carrie Fisher's passing, and, with the limited footage they had. Leia was still alive in the story, but Han and Luke were not. And considering how their lives completely went to shit, and everything they fought for was undone, and now Palpatine is alive, and Anakin's sacrifice meant nothing, you have effectively undone everything from the original trilogy. The Empire came back, got a decisive victory against the New Republic in one day, took over the galaxy completely in one day. This is confirmed. It's in the title crawl of Last Jedi. The Empire's back. Two of our main heroes are dead at this point with Last Jedi and, Force Awakens. And now Palpatine's just back, and he was orchestrating the entire thing. It felt like such a huge slap in the face. And I know why it was done. It wasn't because, oh, you know, they didn't have an idea for like, oh, they killed off Snoke too early. You could have made Kylo Ren a more credible threat with better writing. You could have. It was not impossible. Have a time skip, have it to where Kylo completes his own training with a Sith holocron. That happened with Ezra. It worked fine in Rebels. Why couldn't it work fine here? But no. Now, they brought back Palpatine. And Rise of Skywalker, like, that alone basically convinced me, okay, yeah, they have no idea what they're doing. Like, you know, it also didn't help that they were also, you know, taking feedback from Last Jedi, which I kind of understand because Last Jedi was so divisive, but, like, they went in such the complete opposite direction. It honestly felt like, and I know it wasn't intended to be this way, but it felt like, oh, you hated Last Jedi. Some people hate Last Jedi and some people love Last Jedi. So let's make a movie that everybody hates, just to piss everyone off, so that way we can fix the fan base. I know that that's not what they intended, but it felt like that. Like, bringing back Palpatine was such a dumb-ass move. Like, Last Jedi, as bad as it is, and as much as I don't really like the movie nowadays, you could come back with that. You could expand upon that story and make it credible. You can't do that with Rise of Skywalker, especially with the leaps in logic they make. More shit with about the movie came out. Leaks with the movie came out. We saw an original version of The Rise of Skywalker, which I believe was eventually confirmed with, you know, Episode 9, Duel of Fates. It was initially going to be the original version of Episode 9, which, granted, it probably wouldn't have been that great either, but you know what? It would have at least been better by default because Palpatine never came back. That instantly, by default, makes it better. Because it's a little easier to swallow that the main heroes we grew up with, like Han, Luke, and Leia, had shitty lives and didn't accomplish shit. At least Palpatine was dead. That, you know, Palpatine's a really big threat. The biggest threat the galaxy will ever see. Kylo Ren could never hope to match him. And he is a threat. He should be taken down. But Palpatine was the big, big threat. The big unifying thing. So, at least, Palpatine was dead. And then that was just undone. And I didn't watch the movie in theaters. I saw the reviews for it, I read the premise, I saw a bunch of spoilers and leaks, and I was just like, a part of me wanted to see it just to get an opinion on it, but as time went on, I cared less and less to see it. I eventually watched it via piracy, and I watched the whole movie, and honestly, it was about as bad as I thought it would be. I'll talk about it more when I talk about Rise of Skywalker, because we're getting up to the present. We're catching up to where we are now. But with Rise of Skywalker, I was thoroughly unimpressed. There was a part of me, even though I knew I would probably hate the film going into it, and I know I was going in with low expectations, but I did want to at least see, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's something here. No. Rise of Skywalker doesn't just feel like a slap in the face. It honestly feels like they gave up. They admitted defeat while also just not trying. Like, you know, they wanted to get back some of the splintered fan base of The Last Jedi. But they also just... Rise of Skywalker is honestly so... It's one of the most awful pieces of media I think I've ever seen. At least from, like, a major company. Like, I don't know if I would go so far as to say it's the worst movie ever made. No, there's far worse. There are millions of awful movies released every year that are objectively worse. But in terms of, like, the production and the way it was made and how the film came to be, like, everything is just wrong. I hate that Palpatine is back. But there's other things, too. They once again retcon Rey's origin to be, oh, your parents were nothing. Your grandparents, are, on the other hand, they were Palpatines. So, what? Palpatine had a kid? When did he have a kid? When was this a thing? It's funny, I actually did say that, like, oh, you know, early on, like, before the film came out, like, oh, you know, I have an idea of what they might do. They might make it so Rey's a Palpatine. But when I said that, I thought, oh, well, she's part of the Palpatine bloodline, but she's not necessarily Palpatine's granddaughter or Palpatine's kid. Just a part of the same family. Some people might point to, oh, well, that wouldn't make sense. Didn't Palpatine kill his parents? But it's like, yes, but that was in Legends, not in canon. So they could technically do whatever they want to. She could be some kind of descendant of Palpatine. Not necessarily Emperor Palpatine, but a Palpatine. There you go. That's something. But no, they went with the fanfiction idea, where she was Palpatine's grandkid. So not quite Palpatine's kid, just very, very close. Although I say that, but like, it's weird. So did Palpatine have a kid before Return of the Jedi or not? Apparently, and I don't know if I'm 100% correct about this, so correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I've gathered, Palpatine made a clone of himself that did the deed with a woman. I don't know whether it was consensual or not. I hope it was, I guess. I don't fucking know. It's so stupid. And then that kid had another kid years later when he grew up, which would be Rey's father or mother. I don't know. Could be a mother. I don't know. And then they had Rey. And then they sold her off for drug money to protect her. First off, why would you sell your daughter to protect her? Why not just protect her the normal way? Why are you selling her off for drug money? Or was that a lie? Kylo said he never lied to her, but that doesn't make any sense. You see how many leaps in logic there is with this? And then there's the really fan-fiction-y Force powers where the Force can basically do whatever it wants. Like, they add a bunch of Force powers, like Force healing. Now, Force healing, I actually don't mind, at least in concept. The idea is you're giving up a bit of your own life essence in order to heal someone else. Okay, fair enough, there is a cost for it. Except, no, there isn't, because Rey's never seen suffering any side effects. She's never shown being woozy at all. She can just fully master this ability. And considering how Kylo Ren was stabbed in the gut and Rey just force healed him, why didn't Obi-Wan force heal Qui-Gon? When was force healing discovered? Force healing was... It makes even less sense in current canon, because apparently Barriss is a force healer like she is in Legends, as in Tales of the Empire. Barriss actually has force healing, and she became a healer that traveled after she left as an Inquisitor. But if she had force healing, did other Jedi have force healing? If they have force healing, why didn't Obi-Wan use it? Did he not know how to do it? See how it's like, what? Was it a rare skill only known to a few Jedi? I mean, that makes a little more sense, but it doesn't seem that way. I mean, I could buy it, because, you know, Force psychometry is a thing, and that's supposed to be a rare skill, although Ahsoka, for some reason, has it. It's just fucking bullshit. She shouldn't have it, but whatever. You know, Shatterpoint, that's a Force ability that's rare. I'm okay with rare Force abilities. I just don't understand how Rey has this ability. They just give it to her for no reason. But, you know, whatever. It's not that big of a deal. But then we get the stuff where Rey and Kylo's, or Rey and Ben, because he isn't Kylo anymore at that point, they can transfer items to each other, physical items, via their Force Skype chat, which is like, how the fuck does that work? That's transferring matter. How the hell is that even possible? Even, like, Ben Solo has this, like, I don't know if I can show the clip, but he has this, like, weird pose that he does, where it sort of seems like he's just, you know, doing it as, like, for the fans, just like, yeah, I know, this is stupid. Just go with it. And then there's the shit where, like, oh, the Force dyad that Ren and, or Ben, Ben, whatever, Ben and Rey have is, Palpatine's able to absorb it and become more powerful than ever before and regain his full power. And then Palpatine is just able to shoot lightning and destroy a shit ton of ships. And it's just like, what the fuck is this movie? Like, what the fuck is this movie? Can the Force just do anything now? What can't the Force do? Can the Force just completely blip someone from existence like the goddamn Infinity Stones? Is that what we're doing? Rise of Skywalker also tries to be this Avengers Endgame type movie, despite that not even really working for Star Wars, and also just being so lame and underwhelming. It's just like, what the fuck is happening here? I don't want to go into it any further. I'll cut myself off here. Either way, I think you get the picture. I wasn't the hugest fan of Rise of Skywalker, and honestly, that movie made me kind of look back on the rest of the sequels and think lesser of them. I still think Force Awakens is an okay film. Force Awakens is not terrible. It has redeeming qualities. Last Jedi, however, really suffered from Rise of Skywalker. And honestly, the more I think about that movie, the more I dislike it as well. Because one of my biggest issues is that I only really cared for a third of the movie. But as I started to dislike what they did with Luke, especially as they were building towards it in the Mandoverse, and how I started to see problems with that part of the movie too, eventually that was like, it doesn't hold up. Like, I don't really think Luke's story arc in Last Jedi, his character arc, I don't think it holds up very well, for reasons I will get into when I talk about Last Jedi. But keep in mind, that was the only part of the movie I thought was good at the time. I didn't really like the stuff with Holdo and Poe. I hated the stuff with the fucking Fern Gully side quest. The fucking Save the Animals side quest. What the fuck is this shit? Why are we doing this in Star Wars? Look, I get that the films are for kids. That's fine, but really, this is shit I would expect from a fucking Ewoks cartoon. What the fuck is this garbage? Hell, I hear the Ewoks cartoon is better than this. This is something I would see in a PSA. What are we doing? And, I started to like Last Jedi less because of it. And this time it wasn't because, the fans hate Last Jedi. Because, believe me, the fans hate. Most fans. Not all. It's sort of like a 50-50, where you either love Last Jedi or you think Last Jedi killed your parents. And there's, no equal. I'm very much in the camp where I think Last Jedi is a bad movie and I don't like what they do with Luke. I still don't think it's the worst Star Wars film, though. I would go out I would go out and even say there are things that I do appreciate about it. I'd like to think I have a more nuanced opinion of Last Jedi than most. I do appreciate how it did try and fail, but try to do something. It tried to be about something, it tried to be a movie, it tried to do something. And that's certainly more than what Rise of Skywalker did. I'm actually in the camp that thinks Rise of Skywalker is worse. Rise of Skywalker, I think, is just an utter travesty. It's a train wreck with casualties. Last Jedi is just a bad movie that suffered from really bad writing and poor execution. But there are some good things about it. And good concepts, not great execution. Last Jedi is bad, in my opinion, but it isn't without some merit. Some. And I'll talk about that when I talk about Last Jedi in more detail, but Rise of Skywalker, man, no. That movie was awful. And honestly, the movie was so awful with just how they treated the original trilogy cast, with just how they handled everything in the long run. I honestly didn't know if I would remain a fan of Star Wars, or at least not of the new stuff. I knew I would still be a fan of the old stuff, TCW and Rebels and The old expanded universe and Force Unleashed and the original trilogy, and hell, even to a lesser extent, the prequels, at the very least with Revenge of the Sith. I knew I would probably still consider myself a fan, but I didn't really want to consume any of the new stuff because all of it was going to lead to the sequels. All paths must lead to the sequels. Even with the current Mandoverse, they're edging towards that timeline, which I don't like. Where Luke is a failure, where Leia is a failure, where Han is a failure, they all die, and Palpatine is able to revive the Empire, and nothing they did ultimately mattered. It's one of those things where I just wasn't looking forward to any new Star Wars stuff. However, this will be where I cut it off, for now, talking about the aftermath of Rise of Skywalker in 2020. My interest in Star Wars was brought back by two things. One was The Mandalorian. And even though I'm not a fan of Season 3, that wasn't out at the time, Season 1 and 2 really kind of helped wash out some of the aftertaste of Rise of Skywalker a little bit. It was nice to have something decent from Star Wars. I played Jedi Fallen Order, and I played Battlefront 2 once, the EA one this time, once it got its redemption arc. And I enjoyed those games, and TCW Season 7, with Siege of Mandalore in particular. Siege of Mandalore blew me away, and honestly, I still love Siege of Mandalore. I still think it is a great arc and a great finale to TCW. And it made me appreciate all of the work that went into TCW, including the work from George Lucas himself. And that was what kind of kept me going as a Star Wars fan when it came to me and my interest with the franchise. Unfortunately, after that, it did go down again because, I swear to God, they just can't have consistently good quality with anything nowadays. But that's where we currently are now. There are some diamonds in the rough with some of their Star Wars stuff. I think Andor is great. Mando Season 1 and Season 2 are pretty decent. Season 7, well, Siege of Mandalore anyway, was really good. There are occasionally some good things from the animation team. Tales of the Jedi, the Dooku stuff is pretty good. The Ahsoka stuff is bleh. But the Dooku stuff is pretty decent. And the Bad Batch is good sometimes, and then other times it's not. But there are some occasional good bits. Oh, Jedi Survivor, while I have issues with the game as a whole, Jedi Survivor still had a pretty decent story. I think Jedi Survivor, its storytelling was pretty decent. I prefer Fallen Order for various reasons, but Survivor is by no means bad. There are some good things coming out of Star Wars, but they're a lot rarer than they used to be. I just feel like Star Wars has been suffering from a lot of lack of quality control and tons of mismanagement. I go over it in a video. I might make another video about it in the future, but, for right now, I'll just cut it off here. This video ended up being way longer than I thought it would be, and my throat is sore, so I'm going to just cut it off here. Anyway, yeah, that was my history with Star Wars. That was a lot. Overall, despite my current mixed feelings on the franchise, mostly negative if I'm being honest here, I still do love the franchise. Whatever comes out from Disney now won't undo the past. It doesn't undo my opinions on the original trilogy. It doesn't undo my thoughts on TCW and some of its best stories, or Rebels, or Andor, or anything. Hell, I'm rewatching TCW and Rebels as we speak, and I still really enjoy them, and that's not going to be tainted by the sequels. Yeah, it sucks that the sequels are canon, and I still hate the fact that they are, and to me, they are not canon in my personal headcanon. I refuse to believe the sequels ever happened, particularly the last one, but, it won't taint my perception of the stuff I liked before. And there are still some good things from Star Wars coming out, like Andor. But, I still love the franchise in spite of its very bad mismanagement by Disney and Lucasfilm. And, you know, it has made me appreciate the history of the projects I do like a lot more. And hopefully I'll be able to tell you more about it when I talk about all of these projects. I'm not sure when I'm going to make my A New Hope video. I would like it to be around the time of the 50th anniversary, but who knows, it might be a little before that, might be a little after that. We'll have to wait and see, but that will be the next time I talk about Star Wars in Let's Talk About. That's all from me. I am Lokai, signing out. I'm gonna get a glass of water. I say glass of water, actually. It's more like a bottle of water, because I actually have a... You can hear it with the microphone. I actually have a bottle of water right here. It doesn't matter. Either way, I'm gonna get some water. Bye.